So, in the last class, we were talking about this struts framework. We have gone through the resource bundles or messages, how to configure them and all using resource bundle, that is properties file and all such things. And we saw how we can make the response data available to the JSP page through the value stack as we have discussed. So today we'll go through another topic here, another component called as interceptors. We'll see interceptors. This is another predefined component in struts framework, struts 2. So what is an interceptor? Interceptor, I can say that it is responsible for performing pre-request and post-request processing task. So if you go through this struts flow once, you'll understand. Just a second. But before that, I got few points regarding the interceptors. You can make a note of this. Interceptors, okay? So interceptors sorry are responsible for most of the request processing, I can say, especially pre-request processing, I can say pre-request and post-request. Yes. You'll find that they are invoked by the controller before, after, and after invoking action. Yes. Before the action is invoked and after the action is invoked, I can say that the interceptors will execute. Interceptors perform tasks such as logging, validations, double submit cards, and all such things. Yes. You know, this tasks which you got here, you can think that logging, validations, and all, you can consider them as pre-request processing tasks. And interceptors, you see the third point, it says removes cross-cutting tasks. Interceptors basically they remove cross-cutting tasks such as logging from the action components and create cleaner separation of MVC. Yes. So what are these cross-cutting concern tasks? Cross-cutting concern means the most common tasks, okay, a common functionalities which are spread across the application, I can say. Okay, the most common functionalities which are spread across the application. We say cross-cutting concerns. You say that logging and all, so the most common stuff which we'll be doing. So you can write that common tasks in or cross-cutting concerns in the interceptors itself. You know, you'll find that here for every action component, for every action component, by default, Struts framework configures set of default interceptors. We say default list of interceptors. Okay, by default they'll be applied here. Yeah. So that is what the fourth point says. Struts2 comes with default list of interceptors already configured by the application in struts default XML file. So we got something called as default XML file, so which is pre-configured XML file which will be inherited by all the configuration files. So, but you know what? We can create our own custom interceptors as well and plug in into struts2 based web applications. Okay, you'll have default interceptors. Okay, but you know, you say it is custom interceptor. Okay, we can create custom interceptor here. Yes. So we'll see how to create a custom interceptor as well. But first of all, we'll talk about the default interceptors. We'll see them. Okay, so the first default interceptor here, already I can say that we are using one default interceptor. You know that? What is it? Params. So one important point here which I need to add here again, I'll tell you what is it. Okay, yes, Interceptors, I can say that also, please add this point, are responsible for performing pre-request and post-request processing tasks. Responsible for executing, you can say, pre-request and post-request processing tasks. Pre-request processing tasks means, yes, the tasks pre-request and post-request processing tasks. Sorry. So pre-request processing task means the tasks which have to execute before the interceptor starts before that request is processed. Okay. Yes. Interceptors are responsible for performing or for executing pre-request to processing tasks. What are they? Yes. Can you people give me examples for pre-request processing tasks here? Yes. Examples for pre-request processing tasks. Yes. You know, validations. One such example is validations. Authentications. Yes. And you know what? Here I can say that already we are availing one such feature, pre-request processing feature here as well. I can say, what is it? You know, reading that out form data and populating it into that fields, reading the input data. I can say, you'll find that by default, framework provides an interceptor called as params, which reads that input data and populates it into the action component fields. You know that? Yes, params interceptor. There is an interceptor called as params. Okay. So have you noticed it? Actually, we never written the code to read the form data, that is input data, and populate it into form fields, into that action class fields, right? See, whenever we submit the form, we have noticed it that automatically that form data is populated into this fields here. Okay. Yes. Fine. Now let's try to configure another inbuilt interceptor. You see, we don't need to explicitly configure it which one the params interceptor. By default, it is configured, as I told you people. Yes. Now we'll configure one of the interceptors. Let's say logging. You know, we got a predefined interceptor called as logging. Yes. So what exactly it does? Basically, it will log that activity, I can say. It will log that activity. Okay. Yes. Let's try to deploy this application. I'll show you people. Okay. Now let me first, clear this console. I'll show you the server console. Let's clear this console. Now we'll place a request for that particular action class, all products. All products. Okay, I'm sorry. Just a minute. I guess it is not logging, it's logger. Just a second. All products will not be deleted. Okay. Logger, I'm sorry. Logger. Logger. It's not logging. Okay. Redeploy the application. So we have configured the interceptor for that all products. Okay. Now we'll clear the console. I'll place the request for that all products. Okay. So this time the action is executing. Mm, no. So we have configured it for the all products, right? Yeah. So it should display this log activity. So every time we place a request, it should do that. Uh, there is some issue. Just a second. Let's try to remove this application and I'll try to freshly redeploy it. I doubt maybe this changes which we are doing, they are not updating. Just a minute. So configure this interceptor call as logger. Okay, let me try to redeploy it. Okay, yes. No. Okay, let me configure another interceptor, say timer. So timer, it will calculate the time taken to process the client's request. So why I'm unable to see this in the console? A little surprised. Okay, just a second. So logger should display that log activity, which is not happening. Let's see whether the timer will work or not. Yes. Okay, it says actually jars are missing. That's the problem. Okay, let me just add the jars, the libraries here. So probably few jars are missing. Let me check once what jars are missing. The logging jars, they might be missing actually. Oh, comments logging is missing. Just a minute. Yeah, that's the reason why it was not displaying it. The issue with this, the jars here, comments logging. Okay, so I've added these two jars. You'll find them in start slip folder. Okay, you can copy them from start slip folder and you can add them. These are the jars which were missing actually. That's the reason why it was not displaying that logging contents and all. Yes. Okay, let's see this time. Yes. Now both the interceptors are executing. First of all, you see the logging interceptor, what it does, it prints this message: starting execution stack for action all products. And you see the next one is timer interceptor, so which executes, which calculates the time taken to process that request. It is 431 seconds. You see, once that action class finishes execution, you see, it prints this message: finishing execution stack for action. So this part of the code, sorry, this part of this logging is done. That means this message is the log message in between, that middle two messages, they are displayed by the timer interceptor. Okay, yes. it will display the messages here. Okay, yes, okay, fine. So yeah, you see these are predefined interceptors which you got. Okay, these are predefined interceptors, but by default they are not applied. Okay, by default they are not applied, so we have to explicitly configure them here. So how we are going to do that? Just now we saw that. You see logger timer. I can say that couple of interceptors are by default applied. What are they? One, I've already mentioned it. What was it? Logger. And you know there is a one more interceptor which is by default applied, so we don't need to explicitly configure it. So what is it? Not timer. You know, validation interceptor. So validation interceptor is also by default applied. Validation. So what it does basically, sorry, by default you'll find that the validation interceptor is also applied. So what it does, the validation interceptor, any idea? I'll tell you people. So validation interceptor, you know, it comes into the action after that params interceptor finishes execution. So params interceptor, what it does, you will find that params interceptor will populate that form data into the it will populate the form data into the action class fields here, right? That is what the params interceptor does. So after the params interceptor executes, you know, the validation interceptor will take charge and it will call this validate method here. Okay, it will call this validate method. Yes. Now once the validate method finishes execution, you see if you'll find that even we got some additional validations which were configured here in this XML file, right? So if there are any additional configurations which are configured in that XML file, okay, you will find that it will, the validation interceptor will make sure that so all these validation rules are applied. And once all these validation rules have executed, now if there are any validations, you know, validation interceptor what it does, so it will call that input JSP. Okay, validation interceptor what it does, it will call input JSP, you can say. So it will call the input JSP and pass the error messages to the input JSP. That is what the validation interceptor does. So after that validation interceptor executes, if there are no validations, then what happens? You see, validation interceptors will call the input JSP only if there are any validation errors. Only if there are any validation errors. Yes. What if there are no validation errors? Then what happens? The execute method will be invoked. The execute method will be invoked. So this way the flow is taken care by that validation interceptor. Okay, yes, fine. Now there is one more important thing which you need to know. First, suppose I'll do this. I will configure this interceptors like logger and timer for register process. Okay, we'll configure them for this register action. You know, this register action is actually associated to that register JSP page. So whenever this form is submitted, whenever this register page is submitted, you know that that form data should be populated into this register action class fields, right? And that is taken care by the params interceptor. After that, you see that execute method will be called. I'll do one thing. In the execute method, I'll try to print that that data fields data, whatever the data which is populated into that fields. So we'll try to print that data. Okay, like we got username, first name, last name, and city and street. Okay, sorry, because street is not there. City is also not there. Just a second, let me see. Email is there. I'm sorry, email. So we'll see whether that form data is populated here into this fields or not. Okay, so I've configured a couple of interceptors for that register action, logger and timer. You see. So let's deploy this application on the server. So I'll clear the console. Now we'll access that register page. Okay, we got this register page. Let's type in some data here. And I'll submit this form. Okay. Okay. This is what I wanted to show you people. You see, the execute method is invoked, and when we are trying to print the data, see, you'll find that it is just it's all nulls. That means what happened, that params interceptor, it didn't populate that form data into this action class fields. What could be the reason? What do you people think? Yes. Yes. What could be the reason why that form data is not populated into these fields? I'll tell you people, you know, so we have configured these interceptors, right? Couple of interceptors. Explicitly we have configured the logger and the timer interceptor, right? Okay. So still you're getting the disturbance. Okay. No, for a second you may get it. Just let me know only if it is continuous. That's it. Okay. So what happens here? The default, this interceptors which we have configured explicitly, this interceptors which we have configured explicitly, you'll find that they have overridden the default interceptors here. These interceptors have overridden the default interceptors. Yes. That means now that the default interceptors are not applied. So what are the default interceptors here? What default interceptors we have? So validations and especially that params interceptor, the params interceptor, you know what? You'll find that they're not applied here. Okay. Yes. Okay. So now, how do we make sure that the default interceptors are also applied? How do we make sure that the default interceptors are also applied here? Yes. what to do. Yes. So because we have configured this interceptors explicitly, that's the reason why default interceptors are not applied. Now we have to make sure that the default interceptors are also applied. So for that, what you have to do is you have to do this, add this interceptor reference default stack. So this way we need to again make sure that we reconfigure that default stack of interceptors. We have to again make sure that the default stack of interceptors, they are configured here. Okay. Yes. Okay. So now what happens? The default stack of interceptors will be applied. Default stack of interceptors will be applied here. Yes. Along with this interceptors which we explicitly configured. Yes. So this time we'll try to deploy this application and we'll try to test it. So let's see this time what happens. Yes. Now you see down in the console, so you'll find that form data is populated into the fields here. Yes. Okay. So is it clear for you people? Fine. So this is about the predefined interceptors. You know what? We can define our own interceptors also. So now I'm going to show you people how to define our own interceptor. But before that, I want you people to also identify this. Now, when we talk about interceptors, there are few interceptors which execute before the request processing start. Request processing is done. Okay, and there are few interceptors which will execute after the request is processed, before the request is processed and after the request is processed. Now can you people tell me the params interceptor, so uh, will it execute before the request is processed or after the request is processed? Before the request is processed. Now how about logger? What do you people think? Logger interceptor, is it before or after or both? So actually it is both. Yes, it is before and after. What about the timer interceptor? Timer interceptor also both, I can say, before and after, because you see timer interceptor, first it has to note down the time when the request is about to start execution, right? Yes, and then you see it has to start the timer before that request is started request processing starts execution. And once that request process is done, okay, again the interceptor has to execute here. Yes, so the timer should start before, and after that request is processed, it has to stop execution again, right? It has to stop execution again. Yes, that is how it works. Okay, fine. Now let's do one thing. So we'll create our own interceptor. So if you want, you can create a custom interceptor here. Let's see how to do that. For that, first of all, you need to define a class. Um, so I'll call it as sample interceptor. It's just a normal Java class as of now. Okay, yes. Now, how do we make it an interceptor? As of now, this is just a normal Java class. Okay, we'll make it extends the predefined interceptor class here. Okay, so we got a predefined interceptor class. We got a predefined interceptor class. So called as abstract interceptor. Okay, we got something called as abstract interceptor class, a predefined class. So I'll make this class extensor abstract interceptor. Yes, and we'll override this method called as intercept. Just check this, all of you, please make a note of it. Yes. So this way we can create our own interceptor. Okay. Yes. Now you see, what is the purpose of an interceptor? As we have discussed, it does pre-request and post-request processing task here. Yes, it does pre-request and post-request processing task here. Yes. So now we have to write that pre-request and post-request processing task in this method itself. In the same method you can write it. So first of all, when you configure this interceptor for a particular action class, so it will be invoked. Okay. Yes. Here I'll just add the statement. So sample interceptor. So pre-request processing. If there is any, you will write it here straight away. And after that, that means before the request is processed, what code you want to execute, that code you have to write it. And then we have, after that pre-request processing task finishes execution, after that code executes, now what to do? Now we have to call that action class. So how that action class will be invoked? Yes, how the action class will be invoked here. Yes. Yes. So to call that action class associated to this request, you need to do this action invocation dot, you got a method invoke. Okay, so this way, through this invoke method, you will call that action class execute method. Okay, the execute method will be called, so which will process the request. Execute method will be called, which is going to process the request here. Okay. Yes. Now after the request is processed, you see that action method, execute method of the action class returns a result, right? So that result in turn will be returned here. That result in turn will be written here. Yes. Okay. Yes. So now after the action class execute method finishes execution, I can say that we are done processing that request. Now if there is any post request processing task, you have to write it here. If there is any post request processing task, you need to write it here. Yes. Post request processing task. Okay. And then make sure that you return that result which is written by that action class execute method. Yes. I'm sorry. So this is what you need to do. This way you'll define an action class, and in that action class, sorry, the interceptor, and you see in that interceptor, you'll write that pre-request and post-request processing task. And then now you can configure this interceptor for the desired action classes. So how? Let's see. First of all, we need to register this interceptor here with the framework. So for that, we'll use this interceptors element. Register that interceptor. Configure that interceptor here. So interceptor, let's say sample interceptor, class details, com dot interceptor dot sample interceptor. Yes. Okay. Yes. So this way you'll configure an interceptor. Now once you're done configuring the interceptor, now you can apply it to the action components accordingly. Now let's say for this register action itself, I'll configure that interceptor. Say sample interceptor. Yes. So along with this default interceptors, default stack, and that interceptors logger and timer. So sample interceptor also will be applied to this particular register action. Okay. Yes. Let's see. I'll run this code. Just a second. Let's see. I'll clear the console. Click on submit. Okay. The sample interceptor did not execute. Just a second. What is the class name? Com sample interceptor. The package is com dot interceptor, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Uh, we'll try to redeploy it again. So earlier the changes which we did, they were not updated, you see. Now the interceptor is also executing. Just a minute, please. Just a minute. I'm sorry. Give me a couple of minutes, please. All of you, give me a couple of minutes. Okay. Yes, please give me a couple of minutes. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. So today we'll talk about another topic. So now we saw how to create a custom interceptor, right? Yes. So now hope you understood this custom interceptor. If you got any special requirements, so you can create your own custom interceptor according to your requirements. Yeah. So now we'll go through another concept here, like struts. modules, I can say how to divide the application into modules. Okay, let's see how to divide this application into various modules here. Yes. So for suppose, let's say you are developing an application. In that application, now you have, let's say, two modules. What are those two modules? Let's say the application is divided into two modules based on the users. Okay, like based on the users, like your application, let's say it is accessed by two different types of users. Say users who are customers and staff, and the other users are staff, let's say. So a company has got customers who will be accessing the application, and let's say the company as well has got its own employees who will be also using that application. Okay, so they may need different functionalities here. From the customer's perspective, the application may need to provide different set of functionalities, and from staff perspective, the company that application may need to provide different set of functionalities. For example, customers they may use the application to raise their complaints, and to raise their complaints and check the status of their complaints, let's say. And the staff of the company needs to check this complaints which are raised by the customers and accordingly address them. Just as in this is what we have, let's say. Sorry. So how will you divide the application into these two modules here? Okay, one for customers and one for staff. What to do? Let's see. You know, Struts has got a facility for us in this regard. So it helps us to easily divide an application into modules. Okay, and you will find that each module, it acts as a mini Struts application. Each module, it acts as a mini Struts application again. Okay, yes. Each module acts as a mini Struts application. Yes. So when I say each module acts as a mini Struts application, what does that means? That means you will find that each module will have its own set of components, configuration files, everything. Okay, so independently if you execute it, it executes as a Struts application again. So whatever the configurations are needed for its normal Struts application, what are all the resources which you need, so you'll find that each module will have all that necessary resources. Okay, you can execute it as an independent application also. Okay, yes. Now let's see how to divide our application into modules. So the first step, for each module, please make a note of it, all of you. Okay, just follow the steps to create modules. Okay, So the first step is, for each module you need to create a struts configuration file. Okay, so first step is, for each module create a folder. I'm sorry, just make a note of it. For each module create a folder in the web content directory. For each module create a folder in the web content directory. You see now, for the customers module, I'll create a folder, and for the staff module I'll create a folder, just normal folders, that's it, or directories. This is the first step. Okay, yes, first of all create a folder for each module. Next, you know second step is, for each module create a configuration file, struts configuration file. Okay, for each module we need to create a struts configuration file. Yes, for each module create a struts configuration file. Yes, you see, in the source folder now I'll create a struts configuration file. So already we have this configuration file, right? I'll just copy paste it. So copy it and paste it here. Now I'll name this configuration file as struts hyphen, let's say, customers.xml. So I'll make sure that I'll give the reasonable names here. So this configuration file name, so what I'm doing here, we are giving it as struts followed by the module name, struts hyphen followed by that module name here. Okay, yes. I'm sorry, click on OK. Now similarly, create another struts configuration file for the other module, staff module, struts staff struts hyphen staff.xml. Okay, so you see, after creating this configuration files, now what you need to do is just delete all the stuff, constant variables which you got. Make sure that in this configuration files you only retain that package element, struts and package elements, that's it. You see, okay, make sure that you only retain that package element. And here in the package element, you see we got this name attribute, right? So it should be this name should be the module name. So this XML file, starts configuration file, is for which module? It is for customer module, right? So give the name as customers, and the namespace should be slash customers. That's it. This is what you need to do. Also do the same for the other configuration file. So remove all the constant variables, constant elements, all this action elements. The package name, give it a staff, namespaces staff again. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. So now we are done creating this configuration files, right? Okay. We need to ask the framework to load this configuration files. So framework is supposed to load this configuration files now. So go to that struts XML file, the main configuration file here, which you got. Okay. Go to the main struts configuration file. Yes. In this configuration file now, you see, add this details. Include file struts hyphen customers dot xml struts hyphen staff dot xml. That's it. This is what you need to do. Okay. Make sure that you configure the details about it so that your framework will load this configuration files. Okay. Just a second. Yeah. So that your framework will load this configuration files accordingly. Yeah. Okay. So this is the second step. So first step, we have created folders for each module, and second step, we have created a configuration file for each module. Okay. Next, you know, now identify the web pages which you want for a particular module here. Okay, which are not only web pages, all the components. So for example, I'm sorry, we got this login page, or take this register page. Let's say this is I want this register page request to be handled by the customers module. Okay, I want this request to be handled. So now, okay, fine. So now we want this register page request to be handled by the customers module. Yes. What to do? So first of all, there are two options for us. So if you want this JSP page request, this JSP, that register form request here to be handled by the customers module, now you have two options. First of all, you can add that module's name as suffix here. It's in the form action. You can add that module name as suffix here in the action. That is the first thing. Okay, so this is one option. Now let's see what happens. Okay, I've added the prefix customers, that module name here before that action value, right? Yes, before that URL. So I'll deploy this application. Let's say I'll just access that register page and we'll try to submit this page. So what happens? So let me make you people understand. So when you submit this request, this time the request will be placed. But you see in that URL, that module name, so you got that prefix as a module name. What is it? Customers, right? Yes. So now the framework will take that request and it will check whether there is any action component which can handle this request. So where it will check for that action component, can you people tell me how it will check for that action component? Can you people tell me how it will check for that action component? Yes. So the framework, now what it does is straight away it will refer to this XML file, configuration file, which we have for this customers module. It will check for the action component in this configuration file, which we have it for customers module. Yes, in starts customers XML file, it will check, yes, for this action component. You see, as of now, we don't have any action component configured in the customer's configuration file, right? Let's see what happens. I'll submit the form. This is the result. You see, first of all, in the URL, the request is placed for that register process with the prefix customers. That means it has to be handled by the customers module. Now, if you scroll down, you see it says there is no action mapped for namespace customers. An action name register process. It says there is no action actually. It shows us namespace also customers. That means it's a customer module. That is what it indicates. We don't have any, you know, action component for that particular module, I can say. Yes. So now what to do? You know what? Here I will configure that action component or action class in that XML file. You see, as of now, you got that action class configured in this default struts XML file, but you see framework is not referring to this XML file. Framework is not referring to this XML file, but instead it refers to that struts customer XML file. So I'll configure it here in the struts XML file itself. Okay, we'll do this. Now you see what I did in the struts customer XML file. I've configured that register action class. Okay, so this time after the request is processed, you see the response should be rendered by this welcome page, welcome JSP, right? Now what I'll do is I'll add this welcome page, welcome JSP page to that customers folder. Okay, I'm just moving that welcome JSP to the customers folder here. And once you're done, please here, especially in this configuration files which you got for the modules, remove the slash here, remove the slash. Okay, yes. Okay, yes, that's it. Now you know the framework will search for this welcome JSP in this customers folder itself. Okay, yes. So let's deploy this application. Just a second. So now let me just sorry. Submit this page. This time let's see what happens. Oops, just a second. No, let me just clean up this once. the updates are not sometimes they are not updated properly. Let me just clean it and redeploy it. Okay, so one issue, actually what I did is I've configured the sample interceptor, right? Please remove this because we did that is not in this module. Remove the sample interceptor, so that is also causing the issue. Just remove it. Just a minute. Okay, so click on submit. You see, this time the request is processed. So what the framework is doing here, so for this action component, it will look for that action component in the struts customer XML file, because that prefix was given as that customers, that module name was given as the prefix. So it will refer it to this configuration file here for that action component. Okay, and you see that welcome JSP is invoked, not this one. So welcome JSP is invoked. It was looking for that welcome JSP in the customers folder. Okay, it was looking for that welcome JSP in the customers folder. So hope you people got it. Now you know what, if you want you can move this register JSP to that customers folder also. Okay, if you want you can move that register JSP to the customers folder, but if you move that register JSP to the customer folder, remove this prefix customers from the action attribute. Remove that prefix customers from the action component. Okay, yes. Okay, so this time if you want to access that register page, then you have to use that path, that folder name as well. So customers, which is nothing but the module name slash register dot JSP. That's it. Okay, yes. Now you submit the form. You see, it works. So that registration of the tab starts customer .xml file was invoked. Okay. Now for suppose, let's say I want this request to be handled by the staff module, then what changes am I supposed to do? Yes, if you want this request form request to be handled by staff module, then what changes are we supposed to do here? I'm sorry. So all you need to do is this time you have to make sure that you configure that action component in the struts staff XML file, and make sure that the prefix of this register this action URL is staff. The action URL prefix should be staff, and you have to configure the action class in the struts staff XML file. Okay, so hope you people got it. Now, what is the advantage of dividing the application into modules? Yes. What are the advantages of using the modules? I'm sorry. So you will find that there are several advantages of dividing the application into modules. First of all, you see ease of development. If we divide the application into modules, now we can easily develop each module. You see, each module acts as an independent struts, mini struts application. As I told you people, you see it has got its own configuration file. It has got its own action components. Everything will be separate. Okay, we can first develop a mini struts application, you can say, and then it's a module, and later on you can integrate all this modules together. So that is definitely possible. Okay, and this also leads to parallel application development. Parallelly, several teams can work with each module. They can concentrate on a particular module. So development will be faster because you see each team is concentrating on a particular module, so they have to only bother about few functional requirements which are related to this particular module only. Yes. Okay. So later on, you see this approach helps to make this application extendable. So we can extend this application because it supports modules, right? So we can add modules later on. So according to the requirements, so new modules can be added. Yes, with some additional functionalities and all. That is possible. We can extend the application by adding modules. And for suppose if there is any issue with a particular module, so you can remove it. Okay, still the rest of the application works the same way. So this way you got advantages of using the modules here, right? Yes, ease of development, parallel application development, ease of maintenance, I can say. So it would be easy to maintain modules and fix the issues if there are any. And you see extensibility, I can say extendability. We can extend that application by adding modules. That is also possible. Yes. So hope you people got it. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So now I need one more class, you know, to complete this struts. So we are left over with only annotations part. So I have to show you people how to configure this struts components like action components, interceptors and all using annotations. Okay, how to configure the flow using annotations. Instead of XML files, we can also use annotations. And we have model driven approach. So that is another thing. And I have to talk about this remaining part of the JSTL stuff. Okay. So I'll do one thing. We'll have a class tomorrow. I'll make it a long session. First part, I will talk about the stats. I'll complete it. Then we'll just continue a discussion of the JSPs where we have left like JSTL expression language, and we have got few JSP elements which we need to discuss. So tomorrow I'll complete this JSTL part, JSP part. So after that, we'll move on to the next framework. Okay. Yes, we need to talk about Hibernate and all. Yes, fine. So, um, can you please mail me Bhagya? But there is no such issue. I never received such complaints regarding the records. If you're not able to open them, probably you might need appropriate softwares like try to play it using VLC player, something like that. Okay.
Okay, Mahesh. Actually, it's saying Kodak or something is
Yeah,
missing.
that you have to take care of it. Please do that. So I can't do anything in that regard. So you have to install appropriate
It's
software.
asking which version you made that one. It's
No,
asking about the versions.
no. The only thing is player. You need an appropriate player. Try to download a VLC player or that. It's all about just playing the video. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tomorrow is the same time
Yeah.
class?
So, yes, stats class for you people, it will be last class of stats. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Tomorrow at same time. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So that's all for today. Let's meet tomorrow. Thank you all. Bye bye. Yes.